welcome to today's podcast. It is good to have you here on Wednesday, October 26th. A couple of quick congratulations, and we have a fantastic guest. We have plenty of voices that sound like me and some others to talk about mental health. A different kind of voice, so I want to continue. I think the buzzword is amplify, so we can smash stigma in areas outside of people who look like me. So Tiggs will be along just a couple of months after her wonderful dad, Andre, was here. Congratulations to Jason and the crew, his entire staff. He would not want just his name said, but Jason and the entire crew at our library system at the main library. Same is coming. What is that? The Same Cafe. We've talked about this a couple of times over a couple of years. I think the first and only one is in Colorado, maybe Denver. So all may eat. Same. So all may eat. And it's free. People can just come in and grab stuff. They're looking for some volunteers as well, but so the people can get a good meal. And as I continue to say, and echoing yesterday's point, the library, like when we have the East Toledo Family Center in here, and how they are the fulcrum of that neighborhood, the library offers much of the same across so much of Lucas County, which is why I get irritated when I hear and see people coming up with things to stop the gun violence, and I'm like, look at the library. Congratulations to I don't think Kelsey's been on the podcast once. She is a friend that I met through the Lucas County Suicide Prevention Coalition. She's become a friend, a true mental health avenger. She is a counselor over at Springfield Middle School, and I had no idea. I'm not on TikTok. And again, it's not because I'm old. I just don't like watching stuff for the bazillionth time. I watched hers because there was a story from Heather at 13 ABC about how Kelsey and her fellow counselors went viral. And apparently Kelsey also has like 13,000, 12,000 followers. But this is much bigger than that.
Spirit Week was a teacher-student swap. So the students dressed up like teachers and they were acting like us all day long. And the teachers dressed up like students. So we were pretending to be students all day long.
That was the premise of the viral video put together by counselors Kelsey DePompe, Amy Hagan, and Morgan Rowe.
But I haven't done my hair today.
Do you need to do that?
No.
It's not based on like any individual student. We were kind of thinking about like how we were when we were in middle school.
DePompe posted the video Friday, and as of Tuesday, it's been viewed more than 1 million times.
I texted both of them and I said, oh my gosh, you guys, this is going to go viral. This is blowing up.
Now they've got a chance to earn money.
We know that there are TikTok teachers that make money off of their accounts, and we have a lot of students that are in need here. We said, we could make something out of this. Snacks, school supplies, backpacks, cleaning supplies, hygiene products, things like that. So I won't know how much actually came in until the end of the month.
I was going to say, go throw some money at Springfield. Even easier, go watch Kelsey's videos. Kelsey, the counselor has a K in it. I'm so happy for him, for them to experience that. Another local person going viral. Taylor Swift here for a second, and then a couple other hits before we bring in Tia to talk some mental health, her support of NAMI and the suicidal journey she has been on. There's a lot of attempts in her story. There is a story going around. Woman claims to be Taylor Swift's former high school classmate. Gave her a woman named Jessica McLean is claimed on her TikTok post to having attended the same high school as Taylor, and gave her input about the conspiracy theory involving Swift, expressing everything Miss Swift does is intentional. I went to the same high school as Taylor. We grew up in the same town. So I guess she knows her. But this should not be of any surprise. We've talked about this sometimes, but Taylor Swift is a business, a brand. She got to where she is by being intentional. And I'll use a different word, by being strategic, because she was a star at country music. She came over to the pop music world. There are some very smart people working at record labels. They don't just throw stuff out there. It is extremely complex and robust when it comes to proper strategy to make these artists succeed. So she became successful by that strategy. Now she continues that so she can continue to be one of the Taylor Swift, like the name, the brand, is one of the biggest businesses on earth. Of course, everything she does is intentional and strategic. There is a politics here for a brief moment. There is a Senate race that is right next door to us that is my home state, and I've been keeping a close eye on it because it too has pseudo celebrities. One real celebrity, Dr. Oz. That one is running for a Senate seat, kind of like Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance here. Tim Ryan is running. Dr. Oz is running for a Senate seat against John Fetterman, who is. You'd look at him and go, no, that's not. Those are not his beliefs. He is currently the lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania. He's a Democrat from a small town. Had a pretty ugly situation years ago where I think he pulled a gun on some black kids. He has been remorseful and apologized for that incident, and it is years ago. He is extremely progressive. Not all the way to an end of the spectrum, but he's a pretty darn good liberal in my eyes. Eric, what do you mean? I would totally believe this. He's 6'7", bald-headed, dresses like me, and has a lot of tattoos. You would think he's ultra MAGA, but he's not. He had a stroke amid the campaign, and it's been an issue because he has not gotten back to full health. I think last night was like the first closed caption debate. It was the one and only debate. Maybe you've heard. Governor DeWine will not debate his opponent, Nan Whaley, the mayor of Dayton, and people who won't have their debate offers accepted are pretty upset and pissed off, and I understand it. Let me share this. I'm okay with no more debates. Granted, there is nothing bigger than a presidential debate. I think like 20 million or so watch the Biden and Trump ones. And I think even before that, they have turned into TV show circuses. Some supporters of not having debates, very reasonable minded, not even with a political bias, saying, we know all of what these people want us to know because they have so many avenues to share with us. They can literally turn their phones on. So, and if you want to know something about a candidate, it's easy to find, again, because of all those avenues. They have ways of sharing things with us. Now, I also understand, well, yeah, you want to see these candidates under the stress and adversity of having to come back with a fast retort or counter to a point maybe they weren't expecting. Yeah, but for the most part, politicians don't have to make those instantaneous decisions. They can and should be very measured after gathering as much information as possible, then making as objective a decision as possible, as opposed to shooting from the hip. Then you can say, well, Eric, if they're properly prepared for these debates, they can offer retorts and counters in the moment. Again, they always turn into circuses, and I don't need that. In fact, like I've said many, many times, I hate that fact. Like, I am glad that people who were dismissed and discriminated against and never had voices now are hearing their grievances heard. But it has turned things across the spectrum into the Wild West. As we've talked about here on the podcast, it is a world of extremes. There are very few comedies of the movies anymore. They're big, massive blockbusters. We live in a blockbuster world, and that seems to touch everything. So we just can't have an even-keeled, reasonable debate as we did with Romney and Obama and whoever else. Now they've turned into circuses, and I hate that stuff. So I don't need debates anymore. It's easy to find out what these candidates think. And if someone who supports one person who won't get debated against, that writer or whoever can go ask that potential opponent and go, what do you think of this? And then their thoughts are hopefully out in the public sphere. A couple of days ago, I came across a Twitter thread, and I didn't read the entire story, but it was to the point of, after 1990, music got a lot sadder. What? And I think the point in there, maybe this is why I didn't read it, was because we had a big transition. Do you want to be a rock star? Not really. I mean, that is an antiquated term. You want to be an influencer, social media star, a pop star. But through the 90s, because of what was, you wanted to be a rock star. In the 80s, we had like glam rock that dominated the MTV era. that stuff proliferated TVs and pop culture. And it was a lot of partying songs. I don't know how many Def Leppard or Bon Jovi songs were about mental health, sadness, depression, even if it was quietly veiled. And then in the 90s, different kinds of music began to emerge, specifically hip-hop, R&B, other forms of dance. It wasn't just glam hair rock. And these people were a lot sadder. Like the evolution of what NWA and Public Enemy was talking about proliferated to other people sharing their problems. So, yeah, music after 1990 probably got a lot sadder. Just came across an article today. The headline is, the soundtrack to the climate crisis is Apocalypse Pop. I call it the Apopcalypse. Gen Z is channeling climate anxiety and anger into music. Sure, they've also come of age in two of the worst years in anybody's life in decades. There's a quote in here, and I hate throwing numbers at you, but I want to see if you agree. 56% of people ages 16 to 25 believe humanity is doomed, and 75% describe the future as frightening. I'm pretty certain when I was of that age, I doubted I would be sitting here right now thinking the earth was just not going to make it. If you ask people a little older than me, I always use the example of my dad being terrified or having to be fearful of nuclear attacks. You have a lot of anxiety and paranoid and sad thoughts when you are a teenager or a young adult. Now, and my dad had them, but they weren't as accepted or talked about back then, but they have been now. So we know more about them. But I'm kind of certain that people in that age group, 16 to 25, in any decade, in any era, have a lot of fear for the future. One last thing. I actually got an email from Netflix suggesting a show that caught my attention. Guillermo del Toro. I know he's done some big movies. Pacific Rim? Some others? Off the top of my head, I don't know. The show was called Cabinet of Curiosities. I knew it was an anthology, kind of spooky stuff, right timing for Halloween. And I watched the first episode last night, and it reminds me of the first episode, was, no spoiler, Tim Blake Nelson, good actor, coming back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe after, well, now 14 years away. Good actor, enjoyable guy, played this role really well. He bought a storage unit, and he got to keep whatever was in there. There was like haunted artifacts, and I'll leave that where it is. In the late 80s, I think, there was a Saturday TV show called Friday the 13th. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It baffled me as a kid because I'm like, where's Jason? No machete. It was about a store that had all these haunted artifacts, and it was pretty scary. And it was scary for me being like 6, 7, or 8. It would be pretty scary now. So this Guillermo del Toro show reminds me of that if it continues down that path. By the way, I warned you of this Netflix thing as well. As the ad tier is coming, this show is releasing weekly. You can expect all the big shows on Netflix to release weekly because it keeps you subscribed longer. One more thing with that. There is a Dennis and Maggie Hagen who work at St. Luke's. Impeccable timing. Jason Weber from The Blade did a story about them because they too have an attic, a room of haunted artifacts, many dolls and other things, and we're gonna get them on the podcast real soon. And I even asked them to bring some of their items. So again, impeccable timing. I waited too long of a time to bring on today's guest, Tiggs, the daughter of Mr. Tiggs, who was here in the late spring to talk about PS419, his mental health stuff, but his daughter, Tia, I watched speak when I got to visit his class at Bowser and the many suicide attempts she made. But I wanted her here for beyond that because she has a voice that more people need to hear because of who she is and what she's been through. She can save a lot of lives. Let me welcome into the studio Tia Tiggs.
Hello.
Her dad was here in the summertime to visit to talk bowling But really, lots of his program, PS419 over at Bowser and TPS, but also mental health. And I got to hear you speak at one of his classes because your dad is a big mental health guy, supporter of NAMI, and I wanted to get you in here because you have had a pretty harrowing story. So one, sorry it took me so long to drag you in here. You did have to get a kid out. I knew that was going to take some time.
Yes.
But I also wanted to have you in here. We have plenty of people that look like me talking about mental health. Mm-hmm. I know there's a big stigma in the Black community and lots of minority communities talking about mental health for a variety of reasons. There is nothing from keeping you from talking about mental health, right?
Not at all.
Tell me, you had 2 suicide attempts, correct? Was it more?
It was way more.
Way more.
Yes.
Let's go back. Where did these dark thoughts start?
I had to be in junior high, 7th and 8th grade. So I think like 12, 13. I would get bullied a lot. It was a very, very dark moment. I would get teased about my teeth or my height or my complexion, or I'll be extremely dark or however they say it. And it just got to a point, I remember I was like, okay, if I take a whole bottle of Tylenol pills, then, I won't wake up tomorrow. And I did that, and I woke up with a stomach ache. Mm-hmm. I was just sick as ever. But granted, I could not let my parents know because then I'm like, okay, that's not going to end good.
When you were that age, did you understand the consequences that, like, you wanted to die? You were not going to wake up or anything.
Yes. Okay. I already knew. And it got to the point, I believe I have had it's about 12. It's been 12 attempts. It all started in junior high. And then that was my first attempt. And I think I know I did try it a couple more times, like as the days progressed. Nothing just ever happened.
How come was it stigma from you seeking help?
So at the time, my dad would have me. I wasn't in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different type of therapy that he had put me in, that the firefighters' family would get at the time.
Sure.
And it wasn't until 8th grade where he received a letter and said, "We're no longer accepting Tia in this program. She needs to see a psych doctor."
Okay. So something was clearly more serious than they could handle.
Yes.
Okay.
So then I got to high school. And in my mind, I was watching Degrassi and iCarly. So in my head, I'm like, okay, high school will be like this.
Yeah.
High school was not like that.
Yeah.
It was a bit more rough. I would never forget that at one point, somebody that I considered a friend took my iPad. Not my iPad, my iPod. It was a little small shuffle square ones that's 50
yeah.
up. And when I asked for it back, it was I gave it to so-and-so, or I gave it to so-and-so. And then I went to the dean, because I'm like, that's the right thing to do, was to go to the dean's office. Before I know it, I was getting choked up in the hallway. And it was just like everybody was staring. And I'm just like, holy moly. And I never been through anything like that.
Let me go back if I could.
Uh-huh.
When I think I remember your talk, you got sick from the pills. Your dad found you?
Okay, so that it wasn't until I'm trying to think. It was probably I'm trying to think. Matter of fact, it was high school year. The time that my dad caught me was when I cut my arm.
Okay.
By this time, it was really bad.
So they didn't know before this that you were making suicide attempts.
No.
Hi, Tori.
Say hi.
Hi.
All right.
She's the reason. We'll talk about Tori at the end here.
Yes.
So your parents had no idea that you were making these attempts. They probably had some idea that there were some dark thoughts, but they never would grasp suicide.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so it got to the point, I remember it was a Friday. It was a Friday night. And I found one of my mom's razor blades. And
this is high school?
Yes. And my dad had a minivan at the time. And his seats would like lay back in the back, and then like he'll have the front seats. And I remember just telling him I just wanted to lay down. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were headed to Inky's Pizza.
Great place.
Yes. And I was just going to town. Neither my mom nor dad saw anything. It wasn't until... Oh, bless you. Bless you. You okay? Okay. Ooh, got it. Don't do that. Yucky.
Tia, Tori, and Boogers now on the show.
Yes. Granted.
So, were you going, when was that razor blade attempt? Was that in the car, or you had already made, in the car with him there?
Yeah, yep, he was driving. My mom was in the passenger seat, and my sister was in a back seat, but her seat was like up, because I think at the time, Myra had to be like, maybe like 10 or 11 at this time. She had to be, because we were in like because I was in high school. And so,
when you were considering this, after many times before, likely by yourself, was this some kind of like veiled plea for help that they would stop you?
No, I'm like, as dark, how bad I felt. I was like, I can't imagine continue feeling this way.
Yeah,
it hurted. It hurted so bad. And I'm like, I just can't keep feeling like this. It got to the point, like this razor incident. It wasn't until the following day. My mom was staying back. My dad had a bowling tournament.
Of course he did.
Yes, and so it was my dad, my grandparents were going. My little sister and my mom stayed home. Matter of fact, we were headed to Columbus. Also my older brother. Well, my second older brother, he stays in Columbus. So, I mean, Dad just says, okay, while I'm bowling, you can hang out with your brother. And then, we'll all go to dinner right after. So, we were in the car. Me and Dad was at McDonald's, and he hit my arm. Mm-hmm. And I jumped. And he looked at me, and he said, "You okay?" I said, "Mm-hmm." And then he asked me to hand him something. Mm-hmm. I couldn't hand it to him.
It was the razor blade?
Huh?
It was the razor blade?
It was my arm. I messed my whole entire arm up.
At that point, he probably recognized the gravity of it, and there were some serious steps taken. What were they? At the time, he wasn't sure what to do. Mm-hmm. So we went and we cleaned my arm, and he talked at the time. He said, "Who are you comfortable talking to?" And I said, "I'll talk to Kyle, who's my older brother." Mm-hmm. He said, "Okay." And he said, let's just try to have a good time. If you feel any type of way, you're more than welcome. He said, just open up to Daddy. So we got to Columbus. I think it's April. So I should have on a short sleeve shirt, but I have on a hoodie. And so I remember me and my brother, we were at Barnes & Noble's, and I was like, "Hey, I do got to tell you something." And I explained to him my thoughts. Bless you. My brother, what did he do? He started punching the ceiling and screaming. Out of anger?
Yes.
That he couldn't help you sooner or didn't know?
Yes, that he didn't know. And then he said, "How can I help you?" I said, "I don't know, because I don't even know how to help myself." Then fast forward to Sunday. This is Saturday. So Sunday. Bless you. Do you need tissue? Okay. It got to a point where Sunday went home, and Mom and Dad pulled Mom to the bedroom to talk with Mom, and they both pulled up my arm, and that's when Dad said, "We got to figure out how to get her help." Mm-hmm. But at the same time, my mom was battling with mental illness as well. But again, we did not know this.
Sure.
Also, my mom's favorite brother had just recently, that summer, had committed murder-suicide.
Okay.
So it was still fresh to her, because her and her brother was very, 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 very close. So now my dad has me and my mom battling whatever this is that he's not even sure how to help. I remember, I ended up getting in with the psych doctor, and I looked at him, I said, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah. What about it didn't work for you?
I did not feel a connection.
Sure, I get it.
And then, their way was to suck it up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, no. And then they was like, well, you're a teenager. This is puberty. These emotions are... And I'm like, yeah, no. I'm like, I've been having these feelings since, like, junior high.
And there's depression, sadness, typical thoughts. Anybody that gets bullied is not going to feel great. Yeah. But when it takes you to these measures...
Yes.
So how long did that turn you off from psychiatry?
For a while. Because we were going back and forth. It got to the point I tried my hardest. And then, hold on, Tor. I tried my hardest. I really did. And it got to a point, I think I was like 17. I looked at my dad because I had to be, was I 17 or 18? I had to be 18. I was just about to graduate high school. Or did I just graduate? I don't remember.
So at this point,
it was around this time,
okay.
And I looked at my dad. So I'm not going back. We're not working. And matter of fact, I can tell you exactly what happened. The medicine that the doctor put me on.
What was it? You remember?
Risperdal. Risperdal. And I had the most outer body experience where I was seeing things and hearing things that was not happening.
It almost amplified the mental health issues.
Yes.
Did it give you any solace, any help, relief?
No, it made everything worse. It got
Right.
to a point I was seeing people that weren't there. And I went and I told the psychiatrist about it. And I will never forget, she looked at me and she said, "You're lying." I said, "Excuse me." So then they sent me to the therapist. And it was that didn't happen.
The talk therapy?
Yes. And they sent me to a therapist in the office, and she told me that it didn't happen. And I said, "Okay, I won't be back."
Yeah. Did you decide to keep chasing after it with other clinicians and mental health professionals, or did you just want to try to manage it on your own at that point?
At that time, I tried to manage it on my own, and then it only lasted about a good 2 months.
How come? It got worse, didn't it?
It got 10 times worse.
Yeah.
By now, I am out of high school. I'm a full adult. And the way that I pictured life to be, it was not happening that way.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was only making $8. And I'm like, wow, how can I make more? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. And then I got the real dose of reality about bills. Well, a phone bill at the time. And then, again, my anxiety started happening, and then depression started. It got to the point, it was January 28th. I woke up that morning, I went to church. Matter of fact, it was my fiance at the time, me and him, we went to church together because the night before, my dad, my mom, and we all got into an argument. Because dad was like, "Oh, your attitude is just so nasty." And so, it was very... It was very petty looking back at it now. But January 28th, went to church, and I prayed that whatever I was feeling to please take it away. I do not want to feel this way. As the day got on, as the day went on, I remember I remember going back to bed. No, going back home, and I just laid in the bed. And I was like, whatever I'm supposed to do, just whatever's supposed to happen, just help me. Like, I just want this to go away. Nothing. How I felt did not go away.
Yeah.
So then, it got to the point I walked to the dollar store, and I bought 4 packs of medicine, sleeping medicine.
Another attempt.
Yep. And this attempt, I took 2 packs as I walked home, and I took the rest when I got home. The last thing I remember, I wrote my mom, dad, and my little sister a letter, and I laid on the floor. I do remember my mom trying to talk to me, but I'm not recognizing what she's saying. Next thing I know, I wake up in an ambulance, and I wake up again to everybody surrounding me, and to them trying to pump my stomach. Next thing I know, I'm headed to the psych ward. Was
that the closest you had been to death?
Yes.
During any of your attempts?
Yes.
So let's fast forward a little bit. You're in a much better place now.
Yes.
How did you get there? What were some of the victories and some of the things that worked for you at long last?
It finally got to a point where I ended up finding a psych doctor that listened, and we did different regimens. And then he found a better therapist for me. And I have been with them since 19, 20 years old, and I'm still with them today.
One thing that I learned through the same way that you did, and I'll say it in my words and then you give me your words of it. I always encourage people when you go to look for a therapist or a psychologist, it's kind of like dating. Mm-hmm. You might have to hop around to a couple people. Don't get discouraged like many people do. It is like dating and then you turn into a marriage where that person can finish your thoughts.
Yes.
And you can have those conversations. What was it like for you?
I dated around for therapists. I definitely did. And
how would you put it in your words to say, don't give up, keep looking?
Whatever dark place. Matter of fact, I just said it on Facebook last night. Whatever you're facing right now, it's going to be okay. At the end of the day, it's going to be
Bless
okay.
you.
Bless you. Allergy season. It's going to be okay. Especially when it came down to therapy.
I'll be okay.
Me and my therapist, we have a very close bonded relationship, and she's been with me since I got out the hospital from my January 28th attempt. Both my pregnancies, she has helped me, and then just with life. So now when a reoccurring event happens that triggers me and I contact her, she knows really like we literally talk to each other like best friends.
Yeah.
And that's just when you have that type of therapist, I would never let her go.
Yeah. I have a person. I was fortunate enough to find that person here. In fact, when I was considering leaving here for another job, one of the things that went through my head was I might never find a therapist like this ever again. Mm-hmm. What medications? What was the medication journey for you like?
Oh, that was a lot. I remember at one point he took me completely off work. I was off work for about a month just so we could find different regimens.
Yeah, like a mad scientist.
Yes, and I would literally probably once or twice a week I would go in and we'll try different things. So finally we found the right combination.
What is it? Are you still on that now?
Yes.
What is it?
Okay. Buspirone.
Okay, that's Wellbutrin.
Yes, and then Xanax when needed.
Sure. Yep.
Prozac.
Okay.
And Latuda.
Okay.
And so but then again, that's just for like right now, and like and then of course they was like if something ever comes about, we will always find a different regimen. Your body
and your brain changed.
Yes.
The medication might need to be changed. Mm-hmm. Your environment changes.
Yes.
Medications will get better.
Yes.
So I've changed. I was on Cymbalta for a long, long time. It was causing me a really bad side effect I didn't even think about. Uh-huh. But I added Wellbutrin. I came off the Cymbalta to try something else because, again, in the same way, physically we can't do things when we were younger. The brain works the same way. I'm glad you found I call them the right concoction.
Yes. And also, it was at the time, it's called TMS training, where I would go into the office every day for 12 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks. And I would go in every day at a certain time, and they would literally, it was something they would do where my brain would be hooked up to this machine.
Do you mean EMDR?
Yes, that's what they call it now.
Yes.
And I did that.
Like eye movement therapy.
Yes. And I did that with the most severe attempt, which was in 2019, when I got out the hospital and was back to trying to figure out life. That was one of the things that my psych doctor was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's do this now. This is going to help. And it's still to this day, it helps me. It's amazing.
I tried it because I wanted to do dialectical behavioral therapy, more like mindfulness with cognitive therapy. But my therapist bumped me over. She's like, try EMDR. Mm-hmm. The woman who was working with me, she's like, look, I'm still kind of a rookie at this. So if it doesn't work, let's just split up. it didn't give me what I wanted, but I know a lot of people who have had serious trauma and PTSD, it works for them. And if it works, it works. I know it's still very early on in the EMDR,
Yes.
but if it works, it works. As we wrap up the community contact segment of things, let me ask you this. When you talk to other Black folks about this, as candidly as you're talking now, some probably dismiss you and do all the names like, oh, it's all in your head, the usual stuff. But then you probably bring some people out of the woods and offer them maybe like hope and life. What are the conversations with people who look like you?
Like you said, some people would be like, okay, you got to pray about it. That's not it.
Did you tell them you tried to pray it away? It didn't work?
I was like, yeah, they was like, no, you need to get much deeper. And I was like, okay, that's what works for you. But that didn't work for me. Because obviously there's something.
For me.
It didn't work for Tori either.
It didn't work for Tori either. But then I have, hold on, give me a second, sir. And then I will have some ladies that be like, you're not ashamed. I said, oh, no, I used to be. But now, who I was back then and who I am now, you can't shame me.
Yeah.
And I was like, everybody has a story. Everybody has a past. You can't be ashamed of it. And I'm like, if I can help the next person, I will. And I don't have no problem helping the next person. Because, I have stories for days. But it's okay. It's human.
And who wants to feel lousy?
Yeah.
Like, you want to feel better, do almost whatever it takes.
Yes.
Last thing here on contact. Tell me your encounters, your positives with NAMI.
Okay, so I was doing I would go to group therapy on Mondays when they had it. And I met some of the most amazing people. Some people I'm still close to this day. And we still check in on each other. I just recently, over the summer, I did a segment with Miss Sonia. And I just hearing other people's stories, having them listen to mine. I loved everything about it. And I just can't wait to do something again. Yeah,
Sonia's great at NAMI.
Yes, she's amazing.
And their groups, I think maybe the best way they help people is you can look to your left and right and go, you're just like me. And it doesn't make you feel alone.
At all.
Last question here. We keep coming back to race with this because again, I just know it is a big deal with minority community. I mean, it took COVID for people to go, yeah, I need to see a therapist.
Yes.
Do you think we're gaining ground and positive gains in Black and other minority communities with mental health aid?
Sometimes, but a lot of times it's still a lot of people that's ashamed about it. It's still a lot of people that still commit suicide because they're scared to ask for help. And that is so scary. It really is. And, it's a lot of families, either, being on Facebook. It's a lot of people right now, that's losing their loved ones to suicide because they were ashamed or they don't feel loved. And it's never the case. I just want to be able to keep saying you're not alone. You are loved. Even when you don't feel like you're loved. You're definitely loved.
Yep.
And dark times don't last forever.
Yep.
Today is what, Wednesday?
Yep. 26th.
You see, I have had the most roughest week ever. And it's only Wednesday.
Right.
But the thing is, I'm like, let me readjust, refocus, get myself together. Tomorrow, today can be a bad day, but tomorrow's going to be a better day. And that's just how I have to continue looking at it.
Well, keep talking about this stuff because the more we talk about it, the louder we get, regardless of who or what you are. It makes it easier for others. Mm-hmm. And it's literally life-saving stuff.
Yes.
Thank you so much for visiting.
No problem. So he say thank you. Say thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.